in many of these cases, likely did not have any form of genital cutting occur to you, depending on how long your community has been in the country. And now having your genitals examined by a police officer looking for evidence. And this itself is an extremely traumatic thing. So I think instead of taking, brown-skinned immigrants and treating them like criminals, and then trying to just, protect other people from being treated like criminals that we're more comfortable with, we should stop taking a criminal approach and have a conversation that's, as I say, rooted in honesty, rooted in equal respect between cultures, rooted in trying to actually be informed about the nature of the practice of the other group that you're criticizing, rather than just going on stereotypes from popular discussions, or unfortunately from the World Health Organization document. But for any kind of liberal or reform movement, there are lots of options for how you have alternative rights. And you're also finding that among the most effective ways of getting female genital cutting to stop in the African context is similarly by introducing alternative rights, where once you understand what the point of the ritual is, instead of just saying it's all about mutilating girls, which falls on deaf ears in these societies because they know that's not true. If you instead say, oh, we understand it's part of a rite of passage. Okay, it serves these various social functions. Well, what if you did this other thing and just, didn't actually do any cutting, but instead kept the ceremonies and the celebrations and so forth? Well, a lot of communities are trying that, and that has been one of the most effective ways of getting genital cutting to stop. And it's based on treating the other people like human beings, not like criminals.
Thanks, Brian. We are going to wrap up now. And then my final question to you would be, in the beginning, you mentioned that your job is to describe why someone who is content with what was done to his or her body should not carry on the procedure to his or her child. How was it that you described your job in all this?
Right. So I don't have the luxury of availing myself of hot rhetoric and stereotype claims about different groups and appealing to just throw everybody in jail. I can't do that because I know too much about these practices. And so what I try to do in my own work is engage in moral conversation with people where I say, here are the reasons why I think it would be a good idea not to circumcise your son or your daughter. And one of the reasons why is that when you perform a permanent genital operation on a child who is growing up in a multicultural society where the significance of that cutting is subject to reconsideration, what you're finding is the more that people just get on the internet and learn about what happened to them in their childhoods, very often, you'll have a young girl who underwent a form of cutting in India, let's say, and then learns about this thing called FGM in school and college, and then goes, well, wait a minute. Oh, I remember something when I was 12 and I went to my aunt's house and some shady stuff happened and I've kind of suppressed that and I wasn't really thinking about it. People don't stay children forever. They grow up, they can get on the internet now, which wasn't true 50 years ago, and they can learn about alternative points of view. And so if you cut somebody's body in a part of the body that in virtually every Western society, and more than that, is considered to be especially private and personal and should only be interacted with under highly intimate circumstances, if you cut their body on behalf of reasons that are easy to reconsider, like the person just has to, not share your religious beliefs, for example, all of a sudden, if you permanently cut a part of my penis, let's say, and you say, well, it's really good because it means you're in a covenant with God, and then I grow up and I become an atheist, well, now I have part of my penis removed on behalf of reasons that I might find highly objectionable. In fact, some of my Jewish friends have told me this story about how, sure, you thought I was going to appreciate this, but you can't undo it, and I don't appreciate it. And every time I have a sexual partner or use a shower or use the toilet, I'm reminded that I have a permanent scar on a part of my body that my society tells me should be my own to make decisions about, that represents my parents' religious beliefs, which I reject. And so to me, this is a very good reason not to perform permanent genital surgery on a child unless it's for a reason that everyone will grow up to accept, namely medical necessity. And so that's what I see my job as, is just try to have a respectful, honest conversation with people that takes into account the complexity of these practices, the range of ways in which they're done, and the range of reasons for which they're done, and says, what is an ethical principle that can accommodate all that complexity without just collapsing into stereotypes that we use to comfort ourselves and pretend that what we do is good and what they do is bad, which is unfortunately where much of the moral conversation has stalled for something like 40 years.
Thank you, Brian.